Pen Vicarage on this Friday morning. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well and cheerful, and thank you for being with us for our Bible reflection for today, continuing our adventure through the book of Proverbs. And today, friends, we are in Proverbs and chapter 21. So let's get struck into the text. Proverbs and chapter 21. The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it to wherever he will. All deeds are right in the sight of the doer, but the Lord weighs the heart. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked, are sin. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to want. The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapour and a snare of death. The violence of the wicked will sweep them away because they refuse to do what is just. The way of the guilty is crooked, but the conduct of the pure is right. It's better to live on a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious wife. The souls of the wicked desire evil. Their neighbours find no mercy in their eyes. When a scoffer is punished, the simple become wiser. When the wise are instructed, they increase in knowledge. The righteous one observes the house of the wicked. He casts the wicked down to ruin. If you close your ear to the cry of the poor, you will cry out and not be heard. A gift in secret averts anger, and a concealed bribe in the bosom strong wrath. When justice is done, it's a joy to the righteous, but dismay to evildoers. Whoever wanders from the way of understanding will rest in the assembly of the dead. Whoever loves pleasure will suffer want. Whoever loves wine and oil will not be rich. The wicked is a ransom for the righteous, for the faithless for the upright. It's better to live in a desert land than with a contentious and fretful wife. Precious treasure remains in the house of the wise, but the fool devours it. Whoever pursues righteousness and kindness will find life and honour. One wise person went up against a city of warriors and brought down the stronghold in which they trusted. To watch over mouth and tongue is to keep out of trouble. The proud, haughty person named scoffer acts with arrogant pride. The craving of the lazy person is fatal, for lazy hands refuse to labour. All day long the wicked covet, but the righteous give and do not hold back. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when brought with evil intent? A false witness will perish, but a good listener will testify successfully. The wicked put on a bold face, but the upright give thought to their ways. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, there's always lots of common themes running through here. He has an interesting thing about living with contentious and fretful wives. The irony, of course, is that Solomon ended up having several hundred wives, but you find out in the scriptures. That's quite interesting. But there's about the importance of keeping happy life at home as much as you can. And so that's one common theme that keeps coming through as well. But a few things I just want to pick up on this morning. Firstly, in verse 2, all deeds are right in the sight of the doer, but the Lord weighs the heart. I think what this is about is that the importance of a proper judgment about what we're doing. We can all justify what we're doing. We're all righteous in our own eyes, if you know what I mean. We can all justify the things that we do and the opinions that we have and everything else. And we can all see reasons why we do stuff, and we all like to think that we're tremendously clever and, we're justified in what we do, and, if only people understood, and blah, 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 blah. But it says here, but the Lord weighs the heart. I guess that's what it tells us is, if you want to know what's really going on, the eye of God is what you need to see. We can all justify ourselves. We can all justify our actions. We can all be tremendously reasonable on why we're doing everything and blah, 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 blah. But what this thing here is the Lord who weighs the heart. So let's remember that if we want accurate judgment of what's going on and our actions and words and deeds and thoughts and everything, it's God who is the one who ultimately who sees everything, who knows everything, and it's his deeds, it's his judgment which is the right one. So that's verse 2. Verse 3 To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. There's a similar thing in Psalm 40 and in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 5. And it's basically said a sacrifice here really means kind of, I think it means from our point of view, it means kind of religious practice. And what it's saying here is to do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. And before people start, it's not saying we shouldn't do. Of course, we need to worship, and of course we need to go to church, and it's right that we do our, that we do our religious thing, and that we pray and all this type of stuff. But I think what it's also saying is it needs to pan out in our lives. If we are saying one thing with our lips and doing something else in our lives, then that's a different thing. And we need to make sure that if we're doing the religious thing, which we should do, we're absolutely right that we worship God and we worship regularly with our friends and so on and so on and so on. We need to remember that we need to act justly and act righteously as well. Our deeds outside church need to reflect our words in church. I think that's what verse 3 is saying. Verse 4 is actually a very interesting description here of the heart, really, of sin. Haughty eyes and a proud heart, which he calls the lamp of the wicked, are sin. Haughty eyes are people that look down on everybody else. They like to think that they're clever and they're special and they're better than, and they're kind of a bit superior to everybody else. And a proud heart is one that doesn't want to hear, that thinks they're right all the time and doesn't think they need God and doesn't, I've got everything I need and I'm all right, Jack. And, it's like more to the point, they don't need God. So looking down on others and saying you don't need God, which are, of course, the lamp of the wicked, that is sin, is what it's saying. That's the heart of sin. So we must make sure that we don't look down on other people, and that we're not pointing the finger at other people all the time. And we need to remember that, and make sure we don't have a proud heart, that we are always prepared to listen, that we're always prepared to learn, and we're always prepared to hear from God, and remember, it's the Lord who is our strength. Then verse 5, wise words really about work. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to want. People often want things quickly. They want easy money. They want quick money. And I think that's part of the appeal of the lottery and so forth. But they want easy and quick money, kind of easy come, easy go type of thing. Whereas actually the plans of the diligent are what truly lead to abundance. It may be a boring message, but it's a wise one. Hard work and hard graft and doing things properly is actually the way to proper abundance. Easy come money often becomes easy go money as well. Then in verse 13, again, I hear again the voice of the story of Exodus, when the people of God in their slavery cried out to God. And it says here, if you close your ear to the cry of the poor, you will cry out and not be heard. And I think this is alluding to in those days when they'd been slaves in Egypt and they cried out to God and God had rescued them. And he's saying here, if you close your ear to the cry of the poor, you will cry out and you won't be heard. There's a bit of a warning here, really, that in the past they had cried out in their need and God had heard them in their need. They need to make sure that if people cry out to them, that they are heard as well. That's part of the reason why, as the church at St. Bart's and St. Anne's, we give away good causes, 10% Christian cause, 10% of everything that we get. To remember that we are listening to the poor. We'll remember that there are. It's partly a thank offering to God, but also to remember that there are people who are less materially fortunate than we are, and we need to keep our ears open to hear them, because otherwise, when we get into need, how can we expect God to hear us? And that's seen clear in verse 13. Then finally, in the last two verses of the chapter, there's kind of a reminder here that, God is the wisest of all. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. That in the end, God is the wisest of all. It reminds me in the temple in Jerusalem, in the last week of Jesus' life, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the whole lot, Herodians, they all tried to trip Jesus up, but he was wiser than all of them. And here we are reminded that no wisdom can avail against the Lord, and neither can any strength. For verse 31, the horse is made ready for battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. That whatever it may seem like at times, God will win through at the end. that God has both the wisdom and the power, and that victory belongs to the Lord. It did, it does, and it always will. So lots in this fascinating chapter. You've got God's judgment being in verse 2 being the accurate judgment, that the true assessment of what's really going on. You've got the fact in verse 3 that God actually, if we're going to be religious, and we should be, we need to make sure that our deeds reflect our words, that we are acting righteously and justly, as well as prayerfully. We need to remember that in verse 4 that the basis of sin is haughty eyes and a proud heart. That's the basis of what sin is. There's quite a helpful reminder there of what sin is really about and how to avoid that. Verse 5 is about the importance of hard work, with hard and diligent work. It may be a boring message, but actually that's the way to true riches. Verse 13, that if we want God to listen to us in hour of need, we need to make sure that we don't close our ears to the poor. And finally, in verse 30 and 31, the reminder that no wisdom is wiser than God, and no strength is stronger than God, and the victory belongs to him. God bless you, my friends. Thank you for watching. May his strength and his wisdom infuse you and fill your hearts this weekend. Have a lovely weekend. Do share this message with your friends. Thank you for watching. God bless you. And more on Monday. We'd love to see you at church over the weekend. You'd be very